Welcome to the third video in the foundation lessons for the Emotional Fitness Gym. In this lesson, I want to focus on your relationships with others and help you to understand how they can either alleviate or contribute to mental health issues. Relationships have an impact on mental health in two areas. And the first is how you get taught about relationships in the first place in your family of origin. And the second is how you choose to live your life in your relationships of choice. Now let me elaborate. In the last lesson, we discussed the importance of improving the relationship you have with yourself. And to be honest with you, this is ultimately the most important relationship you have, because when you get your relationships with yourself in order, your inner relationships, your external relationships will follow suit. This is because you know that you're worthy of love and respect, and you quickly realize when you aren't being valued externally, and you take steps to rectify the situation. In essence, your inner relationships set the foundation to build the rest of your life upon. Sadly, many people don't get the unconditional love and nurturing they need to grow up to truly thrive in this world and create nurturing external relationships. The way most people learn about relationships is from their family, and family can mean your blood relatives or the people who raised you. And when the family unit functions well, people usually develop a healthy set of boundaries and learn to love, respect, and value their own self. And they're able to then translate this love and respect to others. But unfortunately, many people grow up feeling controlled and having to hide parts of their true self. And this is where mental health issues can originate. You see, humans are very needy. From birth and until we can fend for ourselves, we depend on those around us for our very survival. And contrast this to a newborn foal or calf, which has the ability to walk by itself soon after its birth. Now, this neediness means that there's a drive for young humans to fit into the tribe no matter what, even if they're surrounded by dysfunction. And in order to belong and to remain connected, people change who they are and suppress the parts that other people deem unacceptable, often the needy and argumentative parts, in order to fit in. I mentioned this in the last video when I talked about hurt parts being taken off your bus and trapped in the luggage compartment below. Subconsciously, people learn to give up their real needs of authentic love and connection in order to fit in and be accepted. And it's how many people lose touch with their real self. It's how the ego's mask is created, and it's ultimately how relationships become confusing. And sadly, most people aren't even aware that this has gone on. Many people silently believe that they're damaged goods and not worthy of love because of their past. But this couldn't be further from the truth. If you, and I mean all parts of you, weren't totally valued, treasured, and loved by those around you when you were growing up, then the problem lies with the people who taught you incorrectly, not with you. Now, it should be noted that everyone is doing the best that they can with the skills and knowledge that they have, and they haven't been taught correctly either. And this is how problems get passed down from generation to generation. But you can put a stop to all this by learning a different way and healing what needs to be healed within you. And it starts by knowing the truth, that you are worthy. You're not bad, you're not wrong, you're not damaged goods, and regardless of what's gone on in your life, you as a person are deserving of love and respect. And it's now your job to learn this truth and teach it to all the wounded parts inside of you that are just screaming out to be freed from their prison so they can be seen, heard, loved, and respected by you, their new parent. So your family of origin is the first way that relationships can either positively or negatively impact mental health. And as mentioned before, many people don't get the opportunity to create a really solid foundation for their life. But this problem is compounded when it comes to relationships of choice, because without healing, you just take your stuff from one place to another, from your family of origin to your family of choice, where power imbalances continue and problems keep repeating. Let me explain. Boundaries are protective mechanisms that guide you, letting you know what's okay and what's not okay. And when a boundary is being crossed in your life, the victim dynamic is established and you're left feeling powerless, and an unequal relationship is created. The definition of a victim in the Oxford Dictionary is a person who's come to feel helpless and passive in the face of misfortune or ill treatment. And this is how the wounded parts I spoke about in the last video are created. It often occurs when adults use fear and intimidation around children as opposed to love and respect. Let's say you felt very controlled as a child. When you were little, you might have initially fought back at this control, but it would have ended with lots of punishment, and you learnt to hold your tongue and keep the peace in order to stay safe and drama-free. Other children may have become rebellious, but let's just stick with this one example of conforming so I can illustrate my point. When a child's been intimidated by adults, whether consciously or unconsciously, boundaries become blurred. The child becomes powerless to speak their truth. They feel small and they become afraid to say or do anything that will upset the big, controlling and dominant adult. And this feeling of being small continues on into adulthood. And when you grow up and move away from this control and start a relationship of your own, this is what I call your relationship of choice. You initially feel relief because you're finally free of your controlling adult, and things go well initially, but one day you have an argument with your partner. You want to stand up for yourself, but unfortunately you unconsciously go into your old familiar pattern of shutting down and shutting up in order to keep the peace. This pattern has been practiced so often as a child that it's become a wounded part of you. And in relationships, what you tolerate, you teach. And closing down, unfortunately, takes you out of being in a normal, equal, and healthy relationship into being a victim, controlling, unequal scenario once more, just like when you're a child. And over time, things progressively can get worse between you and your partner because your self-esteem can erode because you beat up on yourself for not speaking up. You can criticize yourself for staying in an abusive relationship, and you can judge yourself for being weak. But really, the root cause of this problem is the original training or conditioning from your childhood. And because this wound hasn't been healed, it continues to run your life like a computer following a program. When you've been victimized, the bully may be long gone from your external life, and you may have grown into a mature adult with greater control over your life, but the bully still torments your inner world because a part of you remains stuck, feeling powerless. So by paying attention to your inner world and healing what needs to be healed, you can rewrite the programming and change the course of your life. Ideally, your relationships of choice are going to nurture you and provide you with a soft space to land where you're free to be you and where mental health problems can be alleviated. Sadly, this isn't often the case, and they become breeding grounds to further add to your inner torment and weigh you down. Unfortunately, many people find themselves in emotionally dissatisfying relationships where they're not free to be their true self. They either feel controlled or they're doing the controlling, and this power imbalance isn't ideal for your mental health. So the idea is to do the necessary work to transform your relationships from being emotionally stifling into real, healthy, loving connections where you're free to be you and where you feel respected and understood. I'll show you how to do this in the gym because it's important to create nourishing bonds with the people you want to be closest to in your life. You can learn a different way of relating to other people where you don't give yourself up to be loved by others. But once again, this takes time, patience, and a willingness to learn a new way of being in the world. Now, I hope this helps you to understand how your external relationships can impact on your mental health, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video where I'm going to share the links between mental health and your relationship with life. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now. Mwah.